Thanks for that intro. And that's right, I made a lot of mistakes because not everyone can learn from other people's mistakes. Some of us just simply have to be those other people. So this is me, Péter Orbán, and I'm going to tell you about the mistakes I've made and then the solutions I found. I started working at Ericsson about 12 years ago. I started as a verification engineer. I did software testing, I supported customers, and I liked it a lot. And in the last 6 years, I've been leading mainly software testing teams. I spent a lot of time with learning how to do that, but what's really important is that the transition time into my new position was exactly 24 hours. On a Tuesday morning, I came into office as a verification engineer, and on the next Wednesday morning, I was responsible for a team of 25. And you know, I started learning. I started on-the-job learning. I wanted to improve myself. I worked a lot with my colleagues, and I attended the leadership meetings I never attended before, and I always thought those are secret meetings. That's where all the magic is going on. And that myth was ruined instantly on the first meeting. It's the same kind of persons making the same kind of jokes and mistakes. And due to the fact that I had to attend a lot of meetings, I had to learn an essential skill that every manager has to have, or leader, is that when you have an ID card, how can you open the door when you're running into the meeting with your laptop underneath your shoulder, holding your coffee while being on the phone? So, but of course, I did learn a lot. I worked a lot with my people, and I felt that we were actually progressing. This was also backed up by an organizational 360 feedback, where again, I thought I was clever enough because I selected guys. I selected guys who knew they liked me a lot. I selected guys who were absolutely neutral, and I selected guys who did not like me at all. Yet, their feedback was consistent. They were happy, they were satisfied. So again, I pat myself on the shoulder, I'm doing a good job. And about a year later or so, I started business coaching. And together with my coach, we decided that it's time to get some additional feedback, but this time in a different format. This is called feedback session, where I organize a session for my team and ask them for feedback, where I was intentionally not present, only in the first 5 minutes. And I actually told them that, you know, this is the time when you can actually tell anything about me, and I will never ever find out because it will be anonymous. And I can tell you that feedback was different. Actually, I felt like we were living on a different planet. I got feedback like I'm not available. Of course I'm not available. I'm in meetings. I'm doing all the things that will make your life easier. And they told me I'm not transparent. And I felt inside that I'm sharing whatever information I can. Is it better? Okay, so I share all the information that I can and try to include them in whatever that's needed. But the thing that hurt the most was that they said they don't trust me. This was definitely something I wanted to do and change. On the other hand, I had something that I was not supposed to have. I had a honey jar. I had a honey jar of people that I talk a lot on a daily basis, whereas there are other people that I don't even talk at all. And of course, I'm just human. There are guys that I like a lot more than others. And then they wanted to see the person behind the leader. And I still remember this day. It was a Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. The meeting was scheduled, and I planned for a nice weekend, which did not really start as planned. What I got here kept me awake until early morning. And if I just recall some of the feelings that were going through my mind, there were things like, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, I feel betrayed. This is what I get after all the work that I actually did for my team. And, you know, when I was done with the usual curve of acceptance and denial, or denial and acceptance, I could realize that, hey, guys, Houston, we got a serious problem here. There is a clear difference between how I perceive my own work and how my team perceives me. And I wanted to change that. I wanted to be better, but obviously I needed tools and practices to be able to do that, because what I've been doing before was simply not working. Then I looked around in the organization. I looked around. At that time, Ericsson was hiring about 200 people a year for almost 3 consecutive years. And of course, this does not let enough time for the talents to grow. So for many of the newly appointed line managers, they were coming from an engineering background just like I did. And why is that a problem? Well, let me try to illustrate that with the old joke. How can you tell that you are talking to an extroverted engineer? Well, he will be looking at your shoes instead of his own when you are talking. And then, you know, I have some conversations with my wife, and she tells me, honey, why do you have to teach people how to work with other people? And I tell them, because we are engineers. We are different. And, well, she actually tells me that I should also learn how to talk. And then, due to the fact that I usually listen to her, here you see me practicing. But getting back to serious stuff. Imagine yourself on the first day of your life as a newly appointed leader. All of a sudden, you are being faced with a lot of expectations from top management, from your team. You are expected to drive a team that's motivated, empowered, wants to do all that stuff, and then you also need to deliver business results. And there you are, standing without the tools that you need. Okay, but how do I do it? What do I do? What do I need to do? And what's the usual response from the companies? Well, they send you off to leadership trainings. Anybody attended such? Yes. What happens there? They take you off from your workplace context, usually go off-site, and then learn about leadership in your head. You learn about how to lead your people when they are not present. It's like learning how to fly an airplane or a spaceship, only in a simulator. Would you trust me to be your pilot? Anyone? I wouldn't. So, of course, I think we all need practices. We need everyday practical behaviors that can help us in our everyday life. And this is when the idea of the leadership toolbox first came into the picture. So after receiving all that feedback, I did a lot of things with my team. We spent a lot of time together, and based on that feedback, I felt that we are improving. So I definitely wanted to share all the things that we did. But back then, I finally realized that I'm simply not clever enough to do that in a structured way. So I formed a team with the competence development manager, the organizational psychologist, and some other line managers. And we created the idea of the leadership toolbox. The leadership toolbox is a set of practical everyday behaviors and practices that have been tried with the intention for leaders to be able to develop themselves and others, and especially their relationship with their team. But how it does it is completely the other way around as leadership trainings. The tools itself are designed to transform everyday practical behaviors into leadership competencies and attitudes. Because when you go and attend those leadership trainings, you learn the skills and the competencies, but you don't know how to bring it into your everyday life. And that's why we think we have to have tools that support you in doing that in the other way around. What are tools? What can be tools? Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but tools are not something that you go online, download, and upload either to your head or your people's heads. It's simply not how it works. Tools are rather practices and know-hows that are described usually in 3-slide PPTs. One is, what is this? What is the idea of the tool? When should I use it? And then some more details about who is the target audience. How much does it cost? And the important thing is that we are not leaving anybody alone. There is always a contact person who did it, who tried it, who know how it works, who you can always turn to. And of course, some details on the third slide. And imagine the toolbox like a bookshelf, where there are a lot of tools available, and based on your experience and situations, you are free to pick whatever you like. And then the tools are also structured into 4 categories. Reflect on yourself, reflect on others, develop yourself, and develop others. And this structure follows the way how we learn. First, we have to perceive our own situation, and then when we did that, we have to lift it up to a conscious level, take the conclusion, and by doing that, we will be able to build it into our everyday behavior and attitude. And if I had a week, I would be happy to talk to you about all the tools themselves. But for now, I only want to focus on the tools that help me turn around the feedback that I got. And I will start with reflect on yourself. And if you see the screen behind me, these are tools that I'm sure most probably you know. But I want to talk about the importance of reflecting on yourself. You might say, yes, I know what I'm good at. I know what are my challenges. So why do it? Just look at my situation. The way I perceived my life at work was completely different than how my colleagues saw me. So it's really important that you spend enough time on actually doing this. And it's not easy. It's painful, actually. I even remember that night for quite some time. But I had to do it in order that I could start learning and improving. And yes, we have tools here in this category that will provide you feedback from your colleagues and peers. This will be subjective. And then we have tools which will give you some professional help, mostly professional surveys. And hopefully these are complementing each other. So what you see from your peers will be either backed up or complemented by the professional surveys. But what I would like to talk about is the importance of continuous feedback. And by this, I mean continuous feedback for yourself as a leader. Because this is the way how you can actually track your progress. I include myself in every single team feedback. My name is in the same Excel sheet. I have an anonymous web poll so that I can see what I'm doing is actually making a difference. And it's so nice to read that either you did something, then your team is noticing it and gives you that, yeah, this is something that you should be doing. Or you tried something and they don't try anything at all, then most probably that's not what's needed to do for your team. Once you have spent enough time on reflecting on yourself, you should spend some time understanding your team. What are the relationships? What are the social dynamics? And how do they behave? How do they interact? And I would like to talk a little bit about sociometry. Sociometry is a tool that's widely used in kindergarten and elementary schools. So you are quite right to have the question, then what does it have to do on a leadership conference? Well, besides the fact that I actually feel like I'm rather leaving a group of kindergarten group or a kindergarten group than a group of engineers, it has a lot of sense. And there are a lot of social networking tools out there that you can use. Why did I select this? The reason why I want to show you this, because this you can use yourself. Basically, I invested about 14, 16 hours and some help, and I'm able to draw some really good conclusions about my team. How you do it is you ask your team to fill a simple questionnaire where you design the questions. You ask what you are really interested in. It's important that you get them into the same room and it's written and everybody has to be there. If someone's not there physically, they have to be there somehow indicated by a paper or everything so that you don't forget about them. And you can ask questions like, who would you choose to be your team leader? Who would you choose to pair work with? Who would you choose to work in a team of 4? Or who would you go bowling with on a team building event? Am I asking any dirty secrets about my people? I don't think so. These are rather simple questions. So what can I get if I try to visualize the result? I can get graphs like this, where each circle basically represents a person, and each arrow represents a selection. So if you look, basically one arrow means person A selected person B. And you can see that there is a circle with an arrow. And that's purely due to the fact that that guy was at home with a broken leg, so he couldn't make his selection. So this is the graph for the team leader question. Who would you select as your team leader? What can you read out from this? That in my team, they consider 3 people as team leaders, right? Because there are 3 circles with many selections. And that was quite the situation that we had. So there were no hidden team leaders in my team that I have not considered. And if I take it one level up, and then include or mark the arrows with green, where the person selected their own team leader with green, and then red with when he or she selected somebody else, I get this. So I can look at it and say that the majority of my people are satisfied with their team leaders, right? And this is just with the usage of those simple questions. And of course, I could talk a lot more. What I got information with sociometry about is who are the key people in my unit? Who are the ones that are sharing the information? Who are the ones that people only like to have fun with, but they don't like to work with? How are my newcomers integrating? All with the help of these 4 questions. So this is something really nice and gives you a lot of information, but it will not solve any of your issues. It's just information for you to include in your daily decisions. And when you have spent some time on reflecting on your team as well, it's time for you to build that knowledge in. Whatever process you select, I think it works fine. I have some up behind me, coaching, mentoring, I truly believe in. And we also suggest a way of group coaching where we can get the leaders with the same problems, same issues into a room, solving the same problems and developing themselves. The most time I want to spend on develop others. I really believe that why I was able to turn around the feedback that I got from my team is that I started spending a lot more time with them. Develop others is the category where you have tools which help you how to spend that time with your team. Remember the feedback I got for the honey jar? It said that there were people I talk a lot and there were people I don't talk at all, and they were absolutely right. There were guys in my unit I only talked on the regular performance management occasions, 3 times a year, not more. So what I did is I introduced the concept of the frequent sessions, and this is something really simple. You reserve a recurrent time slot in your calendar with each and every one of your employees, 30 minutes. Sounds easy, right? But if your calendar looks the way mine does, it doesn't sound that easy. It would be sometimes so tempting to get rid of these occasions, but this is the place that's there to discuss things which you don't normally not discuss in the daily discussions. In these sessions, I rather focus on questions like, how do you feel? Are you motivated? Do you like the team that you work with? Are you thinking about leaving our company? And the last and closing question is usually, is there anything that I can do to make yourself more satisfied? And I never expected that these sessions will help me bring such relationship with my guys that they actually did. I learned a lot of hidden talents that I did not know before. And I got information that made me able to make a lot better daily decisions. For example, I had a person, I lead a software testing group that wanted to do coding that I was not aware of. So in about 3 to 4 months, I was able to get him a job as a coder. And he did not leave the company. So I think this is really, really useful. So if you start doing it, never ever think about canceling these occasions. Another issue that we faced with my guys was the issue of them, or the issue of they. And I'm sure they exist in your organizations as well. They are the one who are never in the same room where you are. They are the one who made that stupid decision. They are the one who don't know what they are doing, or they are the one who just get everything screwed up. Sounds familiar? And I believe a lot of these issues have to do with the thing that us engineers simply don't understand how different people behave. We don't understand much about personalities. And that's why we started working with my team about getting to know each other, getting to know how others behave. So we started with a simple DISC workshop. DISC is a really simple professional survey which will help you categorize yourself into these 4 categories. You can either be dominant, you can be an influencer, you can be a steady people, or you can be compliant. But you usually only know this about yourself. Wouldn't it be great to know what are the types that your guys have? So what we did is that, again, we get them into a room, and I asked them to fill that DISC questionnaire. It was pretty short, not a lot of questions. And by then, they knew their type. They knew what they were, but I was still missing the step. Okay, but how do I know what the others are? So I asked them to try to visualize it in a 2D space. Two-dimensional space. And I consider myself a good engineer, but this is a 4-dimensional thing. You cannot easily map it, but we at least tried. So imagine the situation where I asked all the guys with a compliant category to move into one corner of the room, all the reds to another corner, all the yellows to a corner behind me, and then the greens to the last one. And I asked them simply just look around. Look around. Who are the people that's close to you? Most probably you don't have issues with them because your behavior, your work style is similar, right? And then look around. Look for somebody who is far away from you. You must have had some kind of issues. Or maybe you didn't because you don't interact, but the way that you work is completely different. And of course, I gave them a lot of guidance about what's good to know from each profile, what can be typical, let's say, burning conflicts for the profiles, and the session was over. So I did not know how much they actually learned from it. And it took me about a week when I went to get my coffee, and I heard the following conversation by the coffee corner. And one of the guys said then, hey, you know, I'm type C. You need to give me more details if you want to work with me. And I just had a little bit of smile finally on my face that I saw that this was catching on. But this was only the beginning. We also work with MBTI. MBTI is the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator Test, which will basically categorize you based on these four preferences or preference pairs. Extroversion versus introversion, sensing, intuition, thinking and feeling, judgment and perception. So a lot more complex. But the questionnaire for this one was 70. And I was really afraid that if I ask my guys to fill out a 70 questionnaire MBTI test, they will want to know what's my secret schedule. Why am I asking them to do it? So what we ended up doing is we found, let's say, a really good workshop where you can work with MBTI in a gamified way. You are able to determine your category only by using cards. And then for each of the preference pair, there is an exercise. And I will give you an example of this exercise, because the intention with this is that we want to show the guys attending the training that how differently the same task can be solved by simply having different attitudes or preferences. So the exercise was for the thinkers and feelers. First, then we selected by the cards who are thinkers and set them at this table, for example. And then the other guys at the sensors at this one, and gave them the following task. So you will receive one less chocolate than you are at the table. So they were 10, they received 9 chocolates. They were 4, they received 3. Distributed in a rightful way. And I will try to recap some of the conversations that were happening here at the thinker table. Thinkers, engineers, you will realize. Okay, so 9 chocolates we have, right? Each chocolate, 30 grams. We have 270 grams of chocolates. We are 10, everybody gets 27 grams. So let's get the scale and the ruler and the knife, and we are done. Let's walk over here for the feelers. Conversations were much more like, anybody here with a kid? Yes. He likes chocolate? Yes. Then why don't you take mine and go home and make him or her happy? So if I walk back here and tell these guys, you know, that's the conversation I heard there, what would they say? They are idiots, right? And this is the power of this MBTI workshop. I gave them the exact same task. And you see the differences between the realization, right? For this one, or another thing is that we actually ended up putting our MBTI profile map out in the open space where we work. So we had enough trust at that time with my unit to make this public. And the feedback for this was not so fast. I think it took about almost 6 months until one of my guys walked into my office and he told me, Peter, I now understand. And I said, what? I now understand all the conflicts and all the issues I had with my team. And I said, how come? Well, I finally looked at our MBTI map, and I have a completely different profile than all the others. And you know, this was the feedback that I was waiting for. This was something that made me feel that, yeah, all the effort that we put in is finally paying off. We start realizing the differences. And see, I only talked about my guys, my team, who know each other. I did not talk about different departments. I did not even think about working in a multicultural environment where more nations are involved. So this is so simply different in that basic level. Imagine the complexity that we work with. So I believe that this helps a lot. Once we start understanding the differences, maybe our cooperation can get better a lot. Good. I had another feedback that I wanted to address. It was that I'm not transparent and I'm not available. And again, they were absolutely right. I was never at my table. I was full of meetings. So what we did for that is we did shadowing. And by that I mean that I offered the possibility to my team and basically anyone in the organization that you are free to shadow me for a week. We will go and I will take you into all the important meetings. And we will spend one day together. And you can even look at how I reply to emails or whatever you want. And you might ask, okay, great, the other guy will see what I'm doing, but what's in it for me? First, I had to gather my thoughts, and I had to think about what is it that I want to show them. And also, I learned myself a lot because they gave me feedback during these sessions. And this was something that I never realized before. It was really it had to do with how I replied to emails. After the first round was over, and when we were talking about the discussions, one of my guys told me that, you know that you actually close down emails about 10 sentences before you are able to send them. So you are maybe missing 3 to 4 words. And you could send them. Yet you close them, and you will open them once again later during the day. Never realized that. And of course, I asked them to share what they have seen in what I'm doing. I think it was an important learning for them. They got to see those LT meetings that I discussed before. And finally, they understood that we are no different than they are. Good. And now if you want to go back to the structure of the leadership toolbox, what I can tell you is that each and every journey will be different because we are all in a different situation. And the only thing that's common is that we all need to start in the reflect on yourself category. That is something we simply cannot avoid. It's not easy. As I said, it brings a lot of emotions. You have to face that feedback. But once you are open, you can start your real journey. But how you will be jumping in between the boxes is completely up to you and your situation. And the only reason why I don't have diagonal arrows in between the boxes is simply due to a still unresolved conflict with PowerPoint. Another thing that I learned when I was going through my journey, I'm sure if I would ask all of you engineers in the room, what's the shortest distance between 2 points? You would give me, it's easy, it's a straight line, right? But when you are working with people, change and straight line, they don't even go into one sentence. Because we are really working with humans. We are not working with machines. We cannot expect that we turn a switch, turn a knob, and then they will behave the way we want. The only thing that we can be prepared for is more or less the unprepared. And then by then, we will have to be able to relate to that situation that comes along the way. So why do I think that all of this is important? Because leadership is relational. Relational in the sense that we will always have to relate with our people and the situations that come along. There is not an official measurement for how good a leader is, but you can always ask their people, and then they can tell you. And I'm sure that I can be a perfectly working leader in my group, in my situation today, and go suck in a different group and a different organization tomorrow if I'm unable to relate to those new people and new situations. Leadership is also about behavior. And I understand that our leadership style is defined by our personality, by our traits, by our background, by our company. But we tend to forget that how we behave is always up to us. We choose how to behave. I often hear the sentence as well that it's the company culture that defines our behavior. But I think the other way around. I think by our own behavior, we are the ones who define that company culture. Leadership is also only focused in a workplace context. It's important to understand that we are not aiming to change the people who we work with. We don't want them to be different. And if I oversimplify it, we just want them to be more efficient in the 8 hours that we work for them so that they drive and deliver better business results for the company. And it's an important thing because that was blocking me from doing all those MBTI and DISC activities until I understand that my intention is not to change who they are. It's just to have an impact on their behavior. And remember, I started my presentation with not all of us can learn from other people's mistakes. Some of us just simply have to be those other people. So what do you think? What was my biggest mistake? I think my biggest mistake was failing to realize on that Wednesday morning that while leadership begins with us, with me, it always ends with our people. I was so focused on myself, my own development, me meeting the expectation, that I forget about my people. So I really urge you to start reflecting on yourself today. go and look into that mirror that others can hold you. Because I can tell you, that mirror is coming. You don't know when it's arriving, but it's coming. You simply cannot avoid it. But you have the choice when you want to look into it. Create an environment where face-to-face feedback is possible, and use that feedback and your growth mindset, not the fixed one. In other words, be open to learn from failures instead of trying to avoid failures. Because by doing so, will you be able to develop yourself, continuously improve, and build those relationships that you have only dreamed about before. And why am I talking to you about this now? Because I believe the world that we live in today has changed a lot in the last 10 years. If we look at all the future of work-related studies, or just at my situation, I was really happy to get a job 12 years ago. But now, if I want to hire anyone from the street, I'm competing with at least 3 or 4 different companies. And it's not me who chooses who is it that I want to work with, but it's the guys that choose that who is it that they want to work for. So as leaders, it is our utmost importance that we need to create an environment where people want to work at. And that's only step number 1. Because that's when the real journey begins. You got the talent on board. You are working with them. And you need to keep them motivated. You need to keep them for the company. You need to be able to retain your key talents. And I believe you can only do so if you yourself continuously improve and develop as well. And we all know the situation at the labor market. We all know how hard it is to get really good talents for our companies. So this is what should be our utmost priority as leaders. And if you look back, this is, I think, my journey, more or less. And I'm still learning. You can see that there are a lot of backward and forward ups and downs. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is that I started. So the only thing I wish to you and urge you to do is that when you leave this conference, you start your own journey. You start looking into that mirror and start continuously developing and improving. Have a nice flight.
Let's see your questions. Wow. First one. No, it's not the first one there anymore because we have a popular and the recent one category. Is your toolbox open source?
Yes, absolutely. There is no magic inside. They are really easy, practical tools that you can do yourself. So feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to share with all the details.
How did you convince engineers to use this toolbox? Engineers basically hate to deal with human things. That's strong.
First, the toolbox itself is designed for leaders. So it's designed for leaders to be able to work with their teams. So in fact, I have to convince the leaders to start using it. And that's neither as easy as engineers, I can tell you.
That was a very political answer because it didn't refer in any sense to engineers themselves.
Yes, because the target group is for leaders.
You're pretty good. What percentage of engineering time you spend for personality tests? How do you get approval for this time?
Well, when I talk with my wife, she usually told me that this is my hobby, and I spent a lot of nights actually doing it, because it's really hard to find the time for that. But you need to find it. When we were creating the toolbox, and this is not me, this is my team, we actually spent a lot of time on the structure and everything. So some of that you need to do in your free time, but I think it's time well invested.
Do you keep improving the box, or it's done?
We have the first version. I don't think it will be ever ready. So we had the aim not to go for a final one, because then we would have never finished. So we have a first version that's ready, available, and open.
What do you consider the weakest part and the strongest part of the box?
The weakest part is, I think, how to get the leaders to find time to use these tools. Is that it's there. Anybody can use it. But this was our intention. We are not pushing it. It's a bookshelf. It's a pull mode. You go and find the time for yourself. And how to get this? That's the tricky part, I think.
Can you make your toolbox available on GitHub, please?
I will try my best.
That was short. What would you say is the most important conversation that a new manager should have with their new team when they first start out?
First, you need to clarify the expectations, because you are new, you don't know what they like, and I think you need to have and spend at least a couple hours getting to know the team and them getting to know you, and make possibility for continuous feedback, because that's how they will tell you what is it that they need.
The next speakers will talk about accelerating assimilation, how to do that. You said a couple of hours. Well, that sounds pretty speedy. It's probably a longer time.
Yes, of course.
Do you have a toolbox for handling your superiors? A wonderful question.
You have the same tools, but you have to be more polite, I think.
Are you serious? It's the same tools, or you're just being nice?
We are the same humans, independent where we are in the organizational chart. We work the same way. That's an important thing to understand. They are the same people. They just live in a higher position.
Okay. Are you more engineer or psychologist now? What do you think about and feel about that career shift?
Well, I refer back to my family. They said, okay, now, does it mean that you will end up as an HR person? And no, I don't want to. I still consider myself as a software test engineer, and that's my profession. This is just adding on to basically how can you make your life much easier, and how can you be a better leader.
The previous speaker got the question, so I want to refer back to you now to, do you keep up with technology? I mean, are you still good at what you used to be good at?
Depending on who you ask, I think. I try my best. I try to pursue the same level of, let's say, knowledge in software testing, but I'm not up to date.
How do you use this toolkit with virtual teams?
That's a good question. Again, I think what's really important with our toolbox is that we don't leave you alone. There's always a contact person. And if the team is virtual, if somebody is not in direct contact with you, this can be trickier, but the same principles can be used. We have a lot forms of communication channels. So the concept is the same. It's just more tricky.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by direct contact. It's not physical.
Yeah.
It's through any tool. So it does apply.
I think so.
You haven't tried it that way? You haven't?
No.
Been in a situation.
What we did, what we actually tried is we off-sourced the tools to another Ericsson company, and we gave them instructions on how to do it. And
you
then
got the feedback?
Yes, they liked it. They did sociometry, they did sociometry and disk workshop, and we got good feedback.
Great talk. Thank you for your honesty.
Thank you.
You still got a whole bunch of questions, and we still got 2 more minutes, so just wanted to read the gratitude to what you said, because that was blue. You actually really had... Okay. You just read the question, please.
Are you surprised? I actually, when I looked at our MBTI map, you see that it's not all introverts, for example. There is a lot more extroverted persons in my group than I ever imagined. But yes, we had all. We had actually, I think we had quite a bunch of INTPs. It's introvert,
thank you for asking.
Intuitive, thinker, and perceiving.
One more time, please.
Introvert, intuitive, thinker, and perceiving.
Okay, I thought it was some app or some program or code or
no, it's the MBTI
something that
profile.
I definitely not know. Okay. How do you keep your team engaged?
I ask them what is it that they need to actually make their life easier, and I try to spend time with them.
What did you mean when you said you have them shadow you for a week?
It's exactly like that. It can be quite strange, because you literally have a person walking next to you, sitting down in a meeting, sitting down in silence, but you inform these guys. Or he or she is looking at your screen while you're answering emails. So literally seeing what is it that you work, what is it that you do in that 8 hours. Like in lucky cases, 8 hours.
The way you were explaining it to me, you were further and further down from me, so I felt a little uneasy, like, don't go away.
I am not.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you.
And this is you. Do we have the people who draw these pictures here already? Oh, they're here. Yeah, let's give them a big applause, please. Thank you.